Nice. So we need to make sure we're in a position that we can sit comfortably without moving for at least 15 minutes. I'll give you a moment to get into position. Excellent. Now, if you feel comfortable, you can close your eyes, or you can keep them half closed and pointed downwards at a 45-degree angle. Place your right palm inside your left palm. Put them on your lap. Back straight. And I'll keep time, so you don't need to worry about that. The first thing we're going to do is begin with a meditative breath, which allows our bodies to know that we're safe, and that it's calm, and that it's okay to drop deeply into meditation. First step is to breathe in and out through the nose. Doing this engages the parasympathetic nervous system, which again allows our body to relax. Excellent. Now we're going to continue with that breathing in and out through the nose. Now we're going to extend the belly button out forward with every inhale. Almost like we just had a large meal. Not to the point where it's uncomfortable, but to the point that we notice. And what this does is it lets us know, or rather it allows our stomach to expand and our diaphragm drops into that empty space, allowing our lungs to get a big lung full of air. So we're breathing through the nose and we're breathing deeply. Nice, slow belly breaths. And now that we have our breathing under control, the next step is going to be for us to turn it into our point of concentration. And to do that, we're going to focus on the physical sensations of our breathing. So the feeling of air moving in and out of our lungs, feeling of the air in our nostrils, our chest expanding and contracting. Now, oftentimes people make the mistake of thinking that they need to clear their minds while they're meditating, and this isn't the case. Rather, we just want to notice our thoughts. And if we realize our mind is wandering, that's fine. That's what minds do. We just bring our concentration back to our breathing, back to the physical sensations I mentioned before. We'll just engage in this cycle. The mind wanders, we come back to the breath. It wanders again, we come back to the breath again. And we'll just breathe for a couple of minutes. That's wonderful. Now, if we feel comfortable, we're going to add a visualization to the meditation. Continue in everything we're doing now. Envision a light in the center of our chest. Our favorite color. So if our favorite color is blue, the light is blue. Our favorite color is yellow, the light is yellow. And as we breathe, with every inhale, the light gets a little bit brighter. So it starts dim, and every inhale makes it get brighter. Almost like we are blowing on a campfire to keep it going. Remembering to breathe in and out through the nose. Pushing the belly button forward with every inhale. And the light in our chest gets a little bit brighter with every inhale. This light that we're envisioning in Buddhism is called our Buddha nature. It's the seed of our enlightenment. It's our Buddhahood. It's always with us. And with every breath, make it a little stronger and a little brighter. Now we're just going to keep breathing. If our mind wanders, that's okay. Minds do that. You just bring it back to the visualization. If we have trouble holding the visualization, that's fine. We just bring our focus back to the breath. And now for the final bit of our meditation. We're going to take every inhale and make our light brighter, our Buddha nature. With every exhale, it's going to come out of our nose and form a little cloud around us. Breathing in the air of the world, we're purifying it with our own Buddha nature. And we're breathing out all the goodness, all the generosity, all the wisdom, so that the world can benefit from our knowledge. So with every breath, find our own enlightenment with every inhale. And with every exhale, the rest of the world finds their enlightenment. We're nourishing ourselves and others with every breath we take. And this cloud that's around us, that's our favorite color, the same color as our light, our Buddha nature in our chest, gets a little bigger every time we breathe out. And we just breathe for a while, just enjoying the cloud we're making. Maybe we can even feel it settling on our skin. And again, if the mind wanders, that's okay. That's what minds do. We just bring our minds back to the visualization. And we start again. Now, in this last minute, we're going to take our cloud. We're going to go blow very gently out of our mouths. We're going to blow it away, directing it to anyone we think needs healing in this moment. It could be a family member or a friend. Or we could just tell the cloud to go off and land where it thinks it's needed most. So we can send the cloud to someone specific, or we can just send it off wherever it's needed. Breathing in gently through our nose. Breathing out gently through our mouths. Bye, cloud. Wonderful. So that concludes our meditation. Very slowly, very gently, over the next 60 seconds or so, come back into the body. Maybe we move our heads side to side. Maybe we rotate our shoulders forward and back. If our eyes are closed, or half closed, when we're ready, we can open them. Wonderful. Thank you for doing that with me. Okay, now that we're centered and rested, we'll start the sutra study for the evening. We'll be reading from the Vimalakirti Sutra. We'll spend anywhere from 4 to 8 weeks with this sutra. I haven't decided yet, but tonight's reading will come from the BTK English Tripitaka translation. It's not a requirement that you have a copy of the sutra for these classes, but if you want to follow along, that might be helpful. Let's see. Now, to give you some preface to what we're about to read, the Vimalakirti Sutra is a Mahayana Buddhist sutra, and it's named after a lay practitioner, Vimalakirti, who was a scholar who had retired, and he was very deeply realized. He was so deeply realized, in fact, that when he got sick and the Buddha tried to send his attendants to check on him, none of them wanted to go because they'd all been embarrassed by Vimalakirti at some point in the past. He was giving a teaching, and they were giving a teaching, and he showed them that they were wrong, and then gave them the correct teaching. And they felt a certain type of way about that. So they respectfully declined each time Buddha said, hey, so-and-so, go see how Vimalakirti is doing. Until finally he sends Manjushri, the Buddha of wisdom, the Bodhisattva of wisdom, to do it. So this sutra is wonderful because it shows the power and the importance of lay practice and how Buddhist practice can be integrated into daily life. We don't need to be monks or nuns to have a strong understanding of the teachings. And to preface this a little bit further, the reading I'm about to do, there's a Buddha from another Pure Land, Tathagata of Wonderful Fragrances. And the way he teaches Buddhism in his realm is through smells and food. So he doesn't use words or lectures, rather he uses wonderful smells, and the people they smell the smells, and then they follow the Buddha way. Or he feeds them food, and the food is so wonderful that it purifies them of their defilements. So imagine that, if you could just eat some ice cream and all of your greed, anger, and ignorance just vanished. That'd be wonderful. Well, that's what it's like in the world of the Tathagata of Wonderful Fragrances. So he explains that to Ananda, who's one of the Buddha's attendants, and he's flabbergasted by this because Ananda is a monastic. He lives a very strict, almost militaristic life. He has 2 robes and a bowl. He doesn't eat after noon. He only eats what's given to him. So having this life of strict discipline and hearing that in other Buddha lands, they simply eat food and smell fragrances, and they learn the Buddha way in that way, is amazing to him. So Ananda has just expressed that he can't believe what he's just heard. And this is how the Buddha responds. The Buddha said, just so, Ananda. There are Buddha lands where the illumination of the Buddha performs the Buddha's work, or where the Bodhisattvas perform the Buddha's work, or where conjured persons created by the Buddha perform the Buddha's work, or where the Bodhi tree performs the Buddha's work, or where the Buddha's clothing and bedding perform the Buddha's work, or where food performs the Buddha's work, or where groves and pavilions perform the Buddha's work, or where the 32 characteristics and 8 subsidiary marks perform the Buddha's work, or where the Buddha's body performs the Buddha's work, or where space performs the Buddha's work. Sentient beings respond to these conditions and are able to enter into the practice of the Vinaya. There are other Buddha lands where dreams, phantasms, shadows, echoes, images, and mirrors, the moon reflected in water, mirages during times of heat, and other metaphors perform the Buddha's work, or where sounds, words, and letters perform the Buddha's work, or where a pure Buddha land is serene and silent, where the wordless, the explanationless, the manifestationless, the consciouslessness, the unconstructed, and the unconditioned perform the Buddha's work. He goes on to say, thus Ananda, given the Buddha's deployment of the deportments and their various actions, there's nothing that is not the Buddha's work. Ananda, there may occur these 84,000 gateways of affliction of the four maras, which trouble sentient beings. The Buddhas use these dharmas to perform the Buddha's work. This is called to enter into the Dharma gates of all the Buddhas. When bodhisattvas enter these gates, even if they see all the pure and excellent Buddha lands, they do not become happy, do not desire them, and do not become elated. Even if they see all the impure Buddha lands, they do not become sad, do not become hindered, and do not become melancholy. They merely generate pure minds with regard to the Buddhas, being joyful and respectful toward the unprecedented teachings they encounter. The merits of the Buddhas, the Tathagatas, are universally same, and it is in order to convert sentient beings that they manifest different Buddha lands. Ananda, when you observe the Buddha's countries, the lands are numerous, but space is not, i.e., there is only one space. Likewise, when you observe the form bodies of the Buddhas, they are numerous, but their unhindered wisdom is not. Ananda, regarding the Buddha's form bodies, their awesome characteristics and qualities, their morality, meditation, wisdom, emancipation, knowledge and vision of emancipation, their powers, fearlessness, and other exclusive attributes of the Buddhas, their great sympathy, great compassion, and the practices of the deportments, their lifespan, explanation of the Dharma, and teaching, and their purification of Buddha countries, where they accomplish the emancipation of sentient beings. All the Buddhas are identically replete in all these Buddha dharmas. Therefore, they are called Samyak Sambuddha. They are called Tathagata. They are called Buddha. So that's a lot of words. What does it all mean? Well, in today's Dharma talk, there are three main points that I'm going to illustrate from this teaching that we need to take away with us. And that's one, everyday life is Buddha practice. Two, all of the form bodies of Buddha are Tathagata, and we in fact are also Tathagata. And finally, we are all Buddhas and our lands are equally valuable. So we'll start with the first point. And to understand this, I'm going to reread a portion of this where he says, thus Ananda, given the Buddha's deployment of the deportments and their various actions, there is nothing that is not the Buddha's work. Ananda, there may occur these 84,000 gateways of affliction of the four maras which trouble sentient beings. The Buddhas are these dharmas. To perform the Buddha's work, this is called to enter into the Dharma gates of all the Buddhas. So what does that mean? Well, first, what does Dharma mean? And normally when we think of Dharma, we think of it as being Buddhism. And Buddhism is a Dharma, but it's not the Dharma. There's a more nuanced understanding. And if we look at the Google Oxford English Language Dictionary, the definition it gives is an aspect of truth or reality. So when we talk about learning the Dharma, when we talk about practicing the Dharma, we're talking about learning and practicing an aspect of truth or an aspect of reality. So when we bow, when we chant, when we meditate, this is the Dharma. But the cushion I'm sitting on is also the Dharma. My cat, who tried to attack our camera earlier, is the Dharma. Lawns, trees, moons, birds, suns, these are all the Dharma. These are all aspects of reality, aspects of the truth. And because they're aspects of the truth, they are opportunities for us to learn the truth. Now, you might be wondering, am I saying that everything in reality can teach us the Dharma, can teach us Buddhism? Absolutely. Am I saying that everything in our life, since everything is an aspect of reality, can teach us Buddhism? Absolutely. Am I saying that we can teach Buddhism? Absolutely. through our words, through our own, we can be image bearers of the Buddha's Dharma. But this doesn't mean that anything goes. Sometimes people hear this teaching and think that they can do or say whatever they want, and that's in keeping with the Buddhist way. That's not correct. Because in order to understand that, the Buddha was very specific in his words. He said, "Thus, Ananda, given the Buddha's deployment of the deportments and their various actions, there is nothing that is not the Buddha's work." Meaning what? Well, deployment, again, reading from the Google Oxford English Language Dictionary, deployment is the action of bringing resources into effective action. So we must deploy the dharmas of our life effectively in order to learn and study Buddhism. Everything has the potential to teach us Buddhism, but we have to approach it in the right way. We have to work with it skillfully. So when Buddhist teachers say things like, the way is the path, samsara is nirvana, what we're saying is that anything can be an opportunity to realize enlightenment if we use it skillfully. Of course, this begs the question, how do we do this? And to explain that, I'd like to use an example from my own life. I was on retreat about 1.5 years ago at Spirit Rock Meditation Center. I'd been invited there to give a Dharma talk and also to congregate with other Buddhist teachers. And Spirit Rock is a beautiful facility. It's about an hour north of San Francisco in Marin County. And there's lots of acres, but the actual part of the retreat space that's used regularly is on a big hill. So if you can imagine, there's the parking lot at the bottom, and there's kind of the public meditation hall. And then there's the cafeteria. There's a gate, and then there's the cafeteria. And then you go up the hill, and then there's a private meditation hall for retreatants. And then you go up the hill even further, and there's the dormitories. I was there for about a week, so I was walking up and down this hill probably 50 times a day to get food, to meditate, to listen to talks, etc. And it was hot because it was California, and I was wearing my robes, which didn't help. And after a while, I didn't like it. I didn't like being hot. I didn't like the fact that my feet hurt. And all of the nonsense, useless thoughts we have when we're uncomfortable started to come into play. Thankfully, the practice kicked in, right mindfulness, and I realized what was happening. I realized I was making myself suffer unnecessarily, and I decided that I was going to do something about it. So what I did is every time I walked up or down this hill, I chanted Nembutsu. Namo Amida Butsu, which is I take refuge in Amida Buddha, Amida being the Buddha of infinite light. So walking up and down this hill became part of my daily practice. And every step, Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu. And what happened is all those negative, useless thoughts I was having previously went away. And instead I was filled with gratitude, and I was filled with contentment, and I was filled with joy. I actually started to feel refreshed every time I walked up the hill. The hill was a dharma, an aspect of reality. And what's important is the hill did not change. It was still steep, it was still long. The heat didn't go away, my robes didn't get any lighter. My mind changed. The way I approached that aspect of reality changed. And as a result, the source of my suffering became the gateway for my awakening. And I was actually quite sad at the end of the week when I had to leave and I realized I wasn't going to walk up and down the hill anymore. So that's the power we have. That's the power of our inner wisdom, the power of our mind, is that we can approach the different dharmas, the different aspects of truth, of reality in our lives, and we can use them in a way to learn Buddhism. to manifest Buddhism, to manifest our own enlightenment. And this is why I say everyday life is Buddhist practice. It's not just the bowing, it's not just the chanting, it's not just the meditating. It's the washing the dishes. It's the cutting the grass. It's the drive to work. Everything has the potential to be the gateway to our enlightenment. Now, how do we do this? How do we take the dharmas of our lives and turn them into the gateways of our awakening? Well, we go back to basics. We go back to the Four Noble Truths and the Noble Eightfold Path, which, as I said previously during Dharma Sunday, is the roadmap to enlightenment. And we filter everything through that, and we figure out how to work with it skillfully. So again, using my own example, the Four Noble Truths say what? Life is suffering. Suffering is caused by desire. The way to end desire is to end suffering, or the way to end, life is suffering. Suffering is caused by desire. The way to end suffering is to end desire. The way to end desire is the Noble Eightfold Path. So first, I had to understand that suffering is a natural part of life. The reason I was struggling with this hill was because I thought I shouldn't have to walk up hills. Foolishness. I thought it shouldn't be hot in California. That my feet shouldn't hurt from walking all day. But when I relearned the first noble truth, life is suffering, which doesn't mean that we can have fun or that life is enjoyable. It just means that suffering is a natural part of the package. And I was able to accept that. Then I was able to accept that, okay, my feet hurt. So what? I'll sit down a minute and they'll feel better. Who cares? It's hot. I'm sweaty. I'll take a shower. I'll be fine. But we have to accept that fact that we can't have the cool meditation space, we can't have the fun retreat without also having to walk up and down some hills sometimes. We can't have the delicious meal without also having to wash the dishes. We can't have the lovely, beautiful house in the suburbs and not also have to cut the grass. Suffering is just a natural part of life, and it's fine as long as we accept it that way. So that was the first step. I had to accept that life is suffering. And then we have the second and third noble truth. Suffering is caused by desire. The way to end suffering is to end desire. My desire to not have to walk up the hill created the entire problem. The moment I accepted the fact that this was just a part of life, all my suffering went away. And we can get rid of so much suffering just by accepting that it's a part of life. Which isn't to say we don't try to fix situations. I fixed my own situation. But we first have to accept that nothing's wrong. We're not being attacked. This is just a part of living in the world. And finally, the way to end desire is the Noble Eightfold Path. So what is the Noble Eightfold Path? That's right view, right intention, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, right concentration. So I had to change my view of the situation. I had to understand that, again, there was nothing wrong. This was a natural part of life. And I had to develop the intention to end suffering, in this case for myself, but also by extension, all sentient beings. So I had to see that there was a problem, and then I had to use my inner wisdom to find a solution. What was that solution? Right speech. I chanted Nimbutsu, Namu Amida Butsu. I take refuge in Amida. Right action and right livelihood. Now, I walked correctly. And what I mean by I walked correctly is that I stopped walking in a way that I felt sorry for myself. I stopped moving through the world in a way where I felt like it owed me something. The hill shouldn't be here. It shouldn't be so hot. I changed my actions. I walked in gratitude. I walked in faith. Namu Amida Butsu. And because I practiced right action, my suffering went away. Right livelihood. We normally associate that with work, with having a job. And that's the correct teaching. But livelihood is more than that. Livelihood is also simply how we live. I changed the way I was living in that moment, from feeling sorry for myself, from a place of desire, a place of want, to a place of gratitude. I was grateful to be at Spirit Rock. I was grateful that they invited me to give a talk, that I got to be around so many other amazing teachers and hear what they had to say. That I got to congregate with the Mahasangha later in the week. When I changed the way I experienced action and livelihood from a place of want to a place of gratitude and contentment, everything changed. And then that takes us to the meditative teachings, right effort, right mindfulness, right concentration. I turned my actions into a concentration, into a meditation, into a samadhi practice, in this case, the chanting. But the walking could have also been a meditation, focusing on the physical sensations of the body. Or I could have found a point off in the distance and meditated on that as I walked up and down the hill. But as I turned this action, which is really just me living my life, into a meditation, everything got better. Everything changed. And we can do this not just with walking, but also with washing the dishes, with cutting the grass. This is why Buddhist teachers are always about live in the moment, live in the moment, live in the moment. Because if we live in the moment, then we can't desire for things to be different. Because in the moment, things are just what they are. So we're not desiring that it'd be the way it used to be. We're not desiring that it'd be a different way. It's simply, it is what it is right now. So that's the practice. That's daily life. That's how we practice Buddhism in daily life, by working skillfully with the dharmas, with the aspects of reality that we come in contact with, and using them in a way to make life better both for ourselves and other sentient beings. And one final point on this before we move on is that one important way that we can look at each dharma is figuring out what's the best way to use it. I like to think of it as food. If we're looking at a table and there's a bottle of poison, there's a basket full of potatoes, and then there's a basket full of ripe apples, let's say. Well, for the apples, we don't have to do much of anything. We can just scarf them up. For the potatoes, you can't eat potatoes raw, you'll get quite sick. But if we work with them skillfully, we can cut them up and fry them and make French fries. We can smash them and boil them and make mashed potatoes. If we work with them well, they're pretty good, even though we can't take them raw. And then there's the poison that we can't do anything with. We just need to avoid that altogether. And so it is with the different dharmas, the different aspects of our daily life. Do I take it as it is? It's perfect. It's helpful exactly like it is. Is it something that isn't so good as it is, but I can work with it skillfully to make it good? Or is it a poison that I need to avoid altogether? And we can use our inner wisdom to figure this out for ourselves, obviously, but we're very fortunate that we have 2,600 years of teachings in sutras that we'll be going through together that help us do this work. So in their compassion and their wisdom, all the Buddhists that came before gave us a roadmap to use. It's quite beautiful when you think about it. So my second point, all the form bodies of Buddha are Tathagata. We are Tathagata. So this is alluded to in the text, and I'll explain that. But first, for this to make sense, we have to understand the teaching of the Dharmakaya. And the Dharmakaya teaching simply states that there is one Buddha that exists in three forms. We have the Dharmakaya, which is the truth body of the Buddha. We have the Sambhogakaya, which is the joy body of the Buddha. And then we have the Nirmanakaya, which is the physical body of the Buddha. So whenever you hear someone use the phrase Tathagata, suchness, they're referring to the Dharmakaya, the truth body of the Buddha, the primordial essence of enlightenment that everything else comes from. The Sambhogakaya are the bodhisattvas, the celestial beings, Kannon, the bodhisattva of compassion, Amida, the Buddha of infinite light, Jizo, the Kannon of hell being, or the bodhisattva of hell beings. And then the Nirmanakaya, that's us, the physical bodies of the Buddha. That's the houseplants, that's the cat, that's the dog. Anything that has a physical reality is the Dharmakaya. So it's one Buddha, but it's manifested in three forms. And the way you can get this to make sense for yourself is to think of the ocean. So you have the ocean itself, which is the Dharmakaya. And out of the Dharmakaya, we have waves. We have icebergs, right? And this is the Sambhogaya, which is still connected to the ocean, but it's not quite the ocean, if that makes sense. A wave is both part of the ocean and it's separate from the ocean, right? And then we have the clouds. So we have the ocean here and we have the clouds up here. And if you look at the clouds, at first we think the clouds are completely separate from the ocean. But science tells us that they're not. Science tells us that clouds are simply ocean water that's turned into vapor, gone into the air, and then formulated into clouds as they cooled off. We are the clouds. We're the Dharmakaya. We think we're separate, but we're not. The Sambhogaya are the waves and the glaciers. They're more connected to the ocean visually. So they're a reminder of what's possible. And then we have the ocean itself, the Dharmakaya. It's all the ocean in different forms. In the same way, the Dharmakaya, the Sambhogaya, the Dharmakaya, us, we're all the Buddha. We're all the Buddha, just manifested in different forms. We're all the Tathagata, manifesting itself in different form bodies. And this is talked about in the passage here where it says, Ananda, regarding the Buddha's form bodies, their awesome characteristics and qualities, their morality, meditation, wisdom, emancipation, knowledge, and vision of emancipation, their powers, fearlessness, and other exclusive attributes of the Buddhas, their great sympathy, great compassion, and the practices of their deportments, their lifespan, explanation of the Dharma and teachings, and their purification of Buddha countries, where they accomplish the emancipation of sentient beings. All the Buddhas are identically repeated in all these Buddha Dharmas. Therefore, they are called Samyak Buddha, Samyak Sambuddha. They are called Tathagata. They are called Buddha. So that Buddha is essentially saying what I just said, or I've said what Buddha essentially said, which is that all the Buddhas are one Buddha. They're identical. They're the same. They just look different. They just move differently, but they all come from the same place. So there's the Buddha of this world who taught practices in order to realize enlightenment. There's the Buddha of the land of wonderful fragrances who uses fragrances and good food in order to teach the Dharma. There are other Buddha lands which are silent and expressionless, where ghosts are used to teach the Dharma. They're all the same. They're all Buddha. They all have the same power to save sentient beings. And what this means is that we, as Buddhas, also have the power to save sentient beings. Because as the text just said, our powers are identical. The only difference is as Dharmakaya, we have to unlock our powers, so to speak. We have to realize our own enlightened nature. That's our vow, to realize our own enlightenment so that we can help others realize their enlightenment. To save ourselves from suffering. Why? So we can save others from suffering. That's the work of a Buddha, of a Bodhisattva. And Buddha is saying we can do that. We can save ourselves and we can save other people. Now, this is kind of a philosophical teaching, and I understand if it's a little hard to take in all at once, but let's do a little thought experiment. How do we know that we're Buddha? I know what the book said, I know what I'm saying, but how do we know? Well, imagine fire and water. Fire has a nature and water has a nature, and they're opposite. So much so that if you mix a fire and a water together, they destroy each other. Water turns into steam, the fire goes out. But if you mix fire with fire, you get a bigger fire because they have the same nature. If you mix water with water, you just get more water. Again, because they have the same nature. So if we are Buddha, then we should respond well to anything that is Buddha, because our natures match, right? Fire mixes with fire, water mixes with water, Buddhas mix with Buddhas. So if we are truly Buddhas, anything that makes us feel good should be of Buddha, and anything that makes us feel badly should not be of Buddha. So what is Buddha? And we'll talk about this more as we continue through the sutra, but essentially Buddha is congregated in the 6 perfections, which are generosity, morality, patience, vigor or diligence, concentration, and wisdom. These are the 6 perfections, or the 6 paramitas of a Buddha. This is how a Buddha behaves. So if we are Buddha, then behaving this way may not be easy for us, because again, we're Dharmakaya, we have defilements because of our physical nature, but it should feel good to us. So just ask yourself, do I feel good when I practice generosity, or do I feel bad? Which feels good to me, stealing from people or offering them assistance? If it feels good to offer assistance, you're probably a Buddha. Morality. Do I sleep well at night if I know something is wrong and I choose not to do it? Do I feel guilty if I mistreat other people? If morality is something that makes you feel good inside, you're probably a Buddha, because morality is one of the perfections of Buddha. Wisdom and concentration. Not to say that meditation is easy. It's not easy for most people, because it's very much the opposite of what we're used to doing in life, which is activating our minds and not calming them. But how do you feel after meditation? If meditation is something that makes you feel calmer, more relaxed, whatever that meditation is, whether it's seated meditation, walking meditation, running meditation, if meditation makes you feel good, you're probably a Buddha. So I won't go through all of them, but just keep that in mind as we go through these teachings. Not to say you have to agree with every little thing, but when Buddha says things like we should be generous, that we should be moral, that we should be wise, does that resonate with you or not? And if it does, then that's proof of your Buddha nature. And we're running out of time, unfortunately, so I'll get to the final point, which is we are all Buddhas and our lands are equally valuable. And this is important because for lay people especially, we tend to have this feeling that we're not doing enough, that our lives aren't important enough, that we should be in a monastery, that we should be sitting in a cave in the Himalayas, that if we're not sitting in the lotus position for 6 hours a day, then we're doing our practice wrong. And what Buddha is saying in this passage is that's not correct. Because we are Buddhas, each with our own land, the way we practice is going to be different. Now, we systematize that practice in the temple with the bowing, with the chanting, with the meditation, but how that manifests in our daily lives, that's up to us. We have to figure that out for ourselves. Now, in the Lotus Sutra, which we'll read later in the year, it's wonderful because Buddha is essentially giving pronouncements and handing out Pure Lands to everyone. And everyone is different. And he says, because of your practice, when you are reborn, your name will be this, and your Buddha land will be this, and you will save sentient beings in this way. Every Buddha has its own Pure Land. We are Buddhas, so we have Pure Lands. And how we work with those Pure Lands, it's going to vary depending on the type of Buddha we are. Because in the Lotus Sutra, people receive Pure Lands based on their karma. based on the practice that they had done in their lives. We're the same way. So maybe based on your karma, your Pure Land is your home. You're a stay-at-home parent and you have animals or children you have to take care of. Maybe your Pure Land is your office. Maybe it's your car or airports because you travel a lot. Everyone's Pure Land is going to be different, but everyone has a Pure Land, which means we have both the opportunity and the responsibility to purify that Pure Land for all sentient beings. Imagine gardening, working in your front yard. Now, we might think about, well, this is just my yard and I'm taking care of it. It's not a big deal. But is your neighborhood better or worse because you have an attractive yard that people see when they drive by? Are your neighbors' lives easier or harder if you take your trash out on the right day and then bring it back on the right day? These are seemingly simple, seemingly insignificant things, but the Buddha tells us that we are all Buddhas and our lands are equally valuable. He went so far as to say, the merits of the Buddhas, the Tathagatas, are universally same. And it is in order to convert sentient beings that they are manifest different Buddha lands. Ananda, when you observe the Buddha's countries, the lands are numerous, but space is not, i.e., there is only one space. Likewise, when you observe the form bodies of the Buddhas, they are numerous, but their unhindered wisdom is not. There is one Buddha, and it manifests in many lands, in many different ways. The forms are many, but the wisdom is singular. I'll say that again. The forms are many, the wisdom is singular. So why can't we see it that way? Well, going back to the Four Noble Truths. Suffering is caused by desire. The way to end suffering is to end desire. We don't like the Buddha land we were given. We want a fancy one. We want a temple on a mountain in a cave that we can take pictures of and put on Instagram. And that's human. That's natural. But it's not what we need in the moment. Gratitude and contentment for the Buddha land we have. The vow to make it as good as we possibly can make it. To save all sentient beings through the work we do. That is what we do as Buddhas. And as I just read in the passage, all Buddha lands are the same. Which means the work we do in our home is just as valuable as the work we do in the temple. Sweeping the floor when we're on retreat is just as important as sweeping the floor in our kitchen. Cleaning the toilets in the temple is just as important as cleaning the toilets in our home. Bowing and being courteous to the cashier is just as, at the restaurant, is just as important as if we did it to His Holiness the Dalai Lama himself. All Buddhas are the same. Their lands are the same. Many forms, but one wisdom. So that's the talk for today. I hope it was helpful. If you'd like to read articles I've written about Buddhist practice, you can do that at my blog, The Same Old Zen. The link for that is in the description below. Again, these teachings are offered for free, but if you'd like to make a contribution, the information for that is in the description below. If you want to do a deep dive into Buddhist training, check out my book, Perfectly Ordinary Buddhist Teachings for Everyday Life. There's a link to a sample chapter of the book, again, in the description for this talk. So let me check, see if we have questions. I'm still learning the Dharma of technology, so bear with me, please. Okay. Nicholas says, I think the most common misconception anyone who's interested in meditation or Buddhism in general is that it's easy, even though Buddha struggled in his early journey. Yes. Okay. Nicholas says, I think the most common misconception. Okay, sorry about that. Yes, that is 100% true. Meditation is not easy. The Buddha struggled mightily in his practice. He almost died, in fact. Meditation is a practice. We have to work with it every day. So that's very important to understand. And then Daniel asks, is Dharmakaya the same as Shunyata? Yes. Yes, it is. It's trying to think of the best way to put this. The short answer is yes, it is the same. The Dharmakaya is a way of wrapping the teaching of Shunyata in a way that kind of makes a little bit more sense, to make it a little bit more tangible. But in essence, the Dharmakaya is Shunyata. It is emptiness, which is not nothingness. Rather, it is the coming together of all things. Okay, it looks like that's it for questions. So it was wonderful just practicing with you guys today. We'll practice again next Wednesday, 6:30, same time, same place. Also join me this Sunday for Dharma Sunday, which will be at 6:30 p.m. On Sunday, however, Eastern Standard Time. Oh, and we have one more question. Would you consider Buddhism panentheistic? Oh, that is a good question. So my understanding of the word panentheistic is that there is God in everything. So everything is an aspect of God. And I'm playing word games with myself because saying God and saying Buddha are not exactly the same. People generally have a very particular idea of what they mean when they say God. They're usually referring to the Christian God, which there are many gods in Buddhism. But that being said, there is a similarity. Buddha is in everything, God is in everything. There is some crossover between those terms. So I think if we wanted to be pedantic, we'd probably say no, but for practical purposes, I think that's a good way to think of it. Yes. All right. Well, thanks so much, everyone. Enjoy your evening.